Join Planet Fitness today and get more epic energy with tons of equipment. Join for $1 down and just $10 a month.
Deal extended through September 21st. Sign up today.
It's glow time. See Club for details.
In the wee hours of the night, when everyone else is fast asleep, you're the one on third shift, burning the midnight oil. When a part fails and everything comes to a grinding halt, regardless of what the clock on the wall says, you leap into action. Grainger is with you and all the ones who get it done. With 24/7 customer support by phone or click to chat. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Do you have a water leak and can't find where it's coming from? Are you dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business? Then call Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their team is prepared to handle all types of leak detection issues, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged areas. Water Cleanup of Florida is fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. There is no need to bring in other contractors. They will handle the entire project from start to finish. Service areas include Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell phone at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356, or visit their website at wcufl.com. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts.
Chris and the guys at Greenview Construction LLC are a firm offering professional services in design and, of course, construction. And they are proud to announce that they've completed design and 3D renderings for 2 spec home models located in the Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens area, sitting on over 1 acre lots. Now, they've got 4 lots available for these model homes. The first is a British West Indies model style, totaling just over 4,500 square foot, air-conditioned space, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and they boast 16-foot ceilings in some areas. The second, more traditional style home, 3,100 square foot, air-conditioned space, 4 bedrooms and 4 baths. They boast 14-foot ceilings in some areas. Both models will have a free-flowing layouts that connect the kitchen, the family room, living room, library, a den, and outdoor lanai, and both models will have an option to add a detached in-law suite if you really want the in-laws to move in, and a garage totaling an additional 1,000 square foot. You can visit Chris and the team online at www.greenviewconstruction.com. You can email Chris Tyson, that's C Tyson as in Mike Tyson, C Tyson at greenviewconstruction.com, or you can call 561-727-5013. They're also on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. Just look for Greenview Construction. And if that wasn't enough, they have an appointment-only showroom at 715 Commerce Way West, Suite 14 in Jupiter, Florida.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
Mostert waddle atop your screen. Tagovailoa. Here they come with Washington. There he goes. Owe chasing. Touchdown, Craycraft. 2-yard throw. Tagovailoa with his 3rd touchdown pass today. Tua going deep. Oh, he's got Hill. He's got Hill. That is 6. And the Dolphins are back in business. Tagovailoa, blocked by Armstead. Going, he's got him! He's got him! Tyreek Hill! And the Dolphins have come back! 60 yards! Unbelievable! Baltimore. Waddle in motion. Tonga by Loa. Blocked by Armstead. 2 into the end zone. Caught for the touchdown! Caught for the touchdown! Waddle! Miami has taken the lead!
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one.
And we're on, and welcome to yet another victorious edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm afraid Artiaga Simon Clancy is here. Chris Kaufman is here. And as always, this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the promo code 5, F-I-V-E, and get a match bonus up to $100. That means you heard me right. You deposit $100, they give you $100. And it's not one of these ridiculous rollovers where you have to roll it over about 1,000 times to get your $100. No, you bet it through once and they give you the $100. So essentially they're giving you $100 for free. So take it. Promo code 5. And of course, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Use promo code 5RSN and you get 20% off your entire order. All right, let's just get into it. Simon, I don't remember a better performance by a fullback in the history of the sport. Alec Ingold was just spectacular out there on Sunday. Your thoughts?
You're the king of hyperbole, Alf. I mean,
and his obsession with Ingold and the fullback position,
I will say this: look, obviously,
it really borders only your obsession with what's his name, that running back that
Kalen Ballage.
Kalen Ballage, yeah.
I actually like Kenyan Drake a lot more, but you guys keep saddling me with that bum Kalen Ballage.
I mean, you saddled yourself with him, mate. I mean,
you kind of did.
Yeah, but the guy that I really had the hots for was Kenyan Drake. That was my favorite prospect. Okay, you know,
mate,
where was he on Sunday?
Thank God he wasn't on the field on that last play. Okay,
that's true. I would have tackled him at the snap.
Yeah, but yeah, look, obviously I'm joking, but Jesus Christ, our coach figured out to put a fullback in the slot and then throw a smoke screen behind him and then have the fullback lead your $30 million lightning fast wide receiver out into the open. Our coach is good. It wasn't
a screen, right? It was wasn't that the, are you talking about the play that the stick nod that Jalen Waddle had? Or
they did 2 of those, and the one that I'm talking about, they had him in the slot and they threw a smoke right behind him, and Tyreek got 15 yards on it. Alec Ingold leading the way. Which when I saw that play, I'm like, our coach is like reaching into the bag and throwing everything at these people, and they just can't handle it. I guess we'll start there. Let's throw, because look, man, we're gonna give flowers to Tua and his 2. I'm sorry. This is as close as you're ever going to get to Duper and Clayton, and they might threaten those numbers from 1984 on the outside. Simon, let's talk about the coach. Let's talk about Mike McDaniel. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a breath of fresh air in coaching generally. Actually, I thought he, what I was most impressed with yesterday, and you know, you can talk about individuals as I'm sure we will. What I was most impressed with was that generally in all 3 phases of the game, the Dolphins were fairly average at best in the first half. You know, Danny Crossman's unit gave up his first touchdown return in 22 years of coaching. Offensively, we just couldn't stick with what was happening. You know, almost had to score on every possession. That wasn't happening. A couple of big turnovers. Defensively was just abject. You know, the cover 0 wasn't working. We blitzed 11 times, got 0 pressures. You know, Jalen Phillips, you know, buddy, the season started already, you know, kind of gone missing. Xavier Howard had one of his worst games as a pro. I didn't think Javon Holland played very well. Brandon Jones fell back to earth after last year. And then after
I hate to interrupt you. This was easily Javon Holland's worst game as a pro. Easily.
Yeah, I didn't think he played very well. But at halftime, they just went in and they just made some amazing adjustments. And I think what they did really interestingly on offense was that it felt like they were just getting away from a lot of the stuff that was just so typically what they thought would work with Tua. And it just was like McDaniel, it almost felt like he was saying at halftime, you know what, we just need to find the plays that we absolutely love with him, the things that we can, you know, the drive starters, the chain movers, where he can use his eyes and his quick twitch to manipulate defenses, get the ball moving, move the chains, whether that's screens, whether that's tunnel screens. and it just seemed to work. And everything he touched at halftime seemed to turn to gold in the second half. I think there was probably something else involved, perhaps someone in a WhatsApp group putting a message out that I think perhaps had a major effect on the outcome of the second half, which I'm sure we'll get to. But generally, I just thought the coaching job he did was outstanding. He's just so easy to love. He's just such a, he's such a good human. He seems fun, and you just really want to play for him. The modern coach, I don't think, has to be a screamer and a shouter and all those things. I think, in the current climate, in terms of, the way that these young guys are, 20, 25-year-old players, social media, all those things, it's different to, even the three of us are of a kind of similar age. I know Alpha's probably 20 years older than me and Chris, but, things are different in terms of how you deal with players. And I just think he gets it. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people said he was too skinny and small to be a head coach. So, but the caveat to that is, look, it's 2 games. We don't win any Super Bowls on the 18th of September. There's a long way to go. But I spoke to somebody in the front office this afternoon, and actually McDaniel sort of highlighted the same kind of point in the press conference this afternoon, which was that yesterday was just one cog out of 17 cogs to get to the playoffs. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing, and we'll talk about it. And I know everybody thinks I'm fucking dour and those sorts of things, and I'm really not. I just try and be real about it. But yesterday was fucking amazing. It was great. But it's just one cog, right?
Yeah, and anytime you hear the word historic attached to something, it's for, it means something. And when you have NFL record and NFL history attached to it,
it does, right? But now we have to, it can't be fool's gold, right? It has to mean something. And that means next weekend. And that goes across the board, right? Because in a way, Tua has now set himself up to fail. I know that sounds dramatic, but like, if he doesn't perform really well against Buffalo, people will just be like, oh, well, last week was just a fluke. It's just a fluke. This is who he always was. Next weekend, you have the opportunity. You're at home. You're against arguably the best team in the league, the Super Bowl favorite. You've got the absolute mutant Josh Allen coming in. It's like, okay, what can we do? I actually quite fancied the Dolphins next weekend, bizarrely. But, this is, yeah, we've played a playoff game in the past decade, but I can't think of many bigger games than this next weekend as a statement in terms of just where this franchise is. And that's what McDaniel said in the press conference earlier on. He was like, to be a good team, we've got to beat these really good teams. And you want to, he said, for us as the Dolphins, we need to find out exactly where our level is now. What is our level? Can we not be intimidated by these big teams? Can we go blow for blow with a Josh Allen? And that'll be really interesting. But yesterday was fucking sensational. It was one of the best, days as a Dolphins fan I think we'll all ever have. And that game-winning rush down, as I so cogently noted in the OnlyFins chat, as Chris and I were going wild, was fucking a great moment. You don't get many of those, and that's why sport's so much fun. It's so exciting. But I think the head coach is just phenomenal. I'm so glad he's ours.
Yeah, it was one of the greatest games in Dolphin history, period. And if you use the criteria that I used on the 3-Way PC Twitter account, which means, okay, it can't be for history's sake. For example, the 1985 Bears versus the Dolphins in 1985, that wasn't a great game. That was just the Dolphins dominating a game from the opening kickoff. The score was 24-0 at one point in that game. That's not a great game. So by my criteria was a close game where the Dolphins win and there's, something historic happens. And it has to be Marino's comeback, I would say, is what rivals it. Marino's comeback after the Achilles in 1994, when he threw for like 400 and something yards and 4 touchdowns, whatever the hell it was, including a game winner on 4th and 1. I think that's what gets close. And of course, the clock game. Those are the two that come to mind. But this one is right there.
I think that beating the Bears in '85 was pretty massive. There was that Monday night game when Ronnie and Ricky were playing, and then Chad Henne hit Ted Ginn for the touchdown over Darrell Revis. That was
a great game.
I was there.
They actually ran the ball with no timeout. Now that's balls, okay? They ran the ball with no timeouts left, with 11 seconds left. They said, "You're not going to stop us from the 1 yard line." So
I think my favorite ever Dolphins game was the wild card game, 17-16 over the Chiefs at home with Marino, and
Yes,
were down 17-3, and then fourth quarter Marino drove them back with the Clayton touchdown, and then the big drive started to Ferrell Edmonds on, and then down that kind of mano quote from Al Michaels, and then Nick Lowry missed the field goal right at the end. I think it was Nick Lowry missed the field goal right at the end after a 5-yard holding penalty on a rookie left guard who went on to have a really good career, but that was an absolute killer. So
if you remember in that game, there was one moment where Christian Okoye broke out in the open, and it's just him and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah,
I mean, not Jarvis Landry, Jarvis Williams.
Yeah,
Jarvis Williams takes him down in the open field, a 260-pound track star.
Yeah, Clayton against Albert Lewis for the touchdown. Lewis was such a good corner, and it was just Marino just threw it low and outside, and that was a great. I listened to that on Armed Forces Radio. It was like unbelievable. I didn't want to move because I thought as the Dolphins started to come back, I needed to piss really badly. But I thought if I move, it's going to be bad luck because completely me staying in the same position as like a 16-year-old teenager laying on my bed 6,000 miles away was clearly what was motivating the team to win. But I thought if I get up to go to the toilet, they're going to be unmotivated. So I just laid still, and I've never been so happy to be like stiff as a board when it was all over. Amazing.
Yeah, I was very, very encouraged. I didn't get to ask the coach too many questions this camp, but I did ask one that I ask of every single coach that every new coach. I ask the same question, which is how much live football do you watch? Because all of them will tell you, I watch the entire league on tape, which is code for I watch the next opponent and the advanced opponents on tape. I don't watch too much live football. I asked this coach that question. He said he watches as much live football he could get his hands on. He says as long as he's not in the facility, he's watching live football. He says he watches every single Monday night game. He watches every single Thursday game. And then he starts rewatching the entire league the next day. As soon as I heard that, I was completely sold. Chris, your flowers for Mike McDaniel.
That's just the most, I've never seen a coach get in the zone. I mean, the way a player does. I mean, the players, you've seen it with players, and
yes,
to some extent, you'd have to say that several players in the offense got in there on the second half. But where you could really see it is, I mean, as Simon said, every single thing he touched turned to gold, and you could really see it on the run plays. I mean, take Tua and throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle aside. The runs that he called all ended up looking timely and highly effective against the defensive front, and then none better than that Chase Edmonds hitter on the final drive. I think that even the clock management. I mean, we're sitting here like, should he take a timeout? They're running too much time off the clock, and yet it ended up perfect because they took all the time off the clock they needed to take to make sure that Lamar Jackson wasn't going to be able to have an answer.
No,
and Lamar was playing well. So I mean, if you gave him possibly even just 30 seconds more, then you'd have had to be worried the way the defense had been playing at different times of especially in the first half. So I've just never seen, just as a play caller, just like everything he does is magic. And it was pretty crazy to watch that. And I mean, because you've seen it with the players, but with a coach, that was pretty impressive. I think, for all the reasons Simon talks about, he's definitely got the team. I mean, the team has felt his personality one way or another. You can express your doubts about it. And, some people I know when he initially got here, it's like, he feels like he's a little fake or something like that, or he's trying too hard or something. But I get those people just don't see that he's just very unapologetically himself. Mm-hmm. But I think that you cannot argue with the idea that the team has felt his personality and taken on some of his traits, and that's what a head coach is supposed. One of the many things that a head coach is supposed to do. So it's just phenomenal. I look forward to seeing the rest of it. I want to see more. I want to see how they follow it up. I don't want them to get to fall into the pattern of, shooting themselves in the foot and then trying to bail themselves out again. Like that, like just because it happened this time, I don't want this, because you've seen that in other seasons. Like you've seen that it's like, yeah, we have the comeback We have the comeback stuff. I think we even saw it with Ryan Fitzpatrick at various times. You know, we have the comeback thing, but yeah, we also keep getting ourselves into a deficit. We also keep shooting ourselves in the foot. We can't get into that. That's one thing that I want to watch out for. Another thing I want to watch out for is this is the time of the year where the defense actually did slump. They did all right in week 1 last year, and week 2 they really, they've been drilling into these players' heads all off season, is my understanding, all training camp, about the slow start from a year ago. Slow start, can't get off to a slow start. They did a lot of things to try and prevent that. And now here we are in week 2 when things started to fall apart in the first half of the season for the defense, and things fell apart for the defense. So you definitely have to watch out for that. But I mean, offensively, the Dolphins are one of the top 3, top 5 offenses in the NFL legitimately. And through 2 weeks, and it's only 2 weeks, I get it, but it's also been consistent because, as I pointed out last week, that offense was sneaky, consistent, and productive in the New England game. Only had 8 drives, or however many drives that they had. They were scoring 2.5 points. They were on kind of a 2.5 point per drive pace, which is pretty good offense. And then even this week, the first half, they weren't keeping up. With the defenses getting boat raced like that, they're not going to keep up. And in fact, they were pressing, and so that's how you get the two interceptions. And yet they only had 4 drives in that first half, and they scored a touchdown on one of them. And then they came out in the second half and scored a touchdown on another one. So it was like 2 touchdowns on 5 drives. That's the same pace. They're consistent. I think that offense is, no matter which way they're trying to attack it, whether it be passing game, running game, or, something in between. So I really look forward to seeing that as we go. A little bit wary of, whether the defense starts playing like they did first half of last year. You can't do that against the Bills, because the Bills have a much better defense. But goddamn, I've just never seen a guy just have his finger on exactly the right thing every single play.
Offense is so sexy as well, isn't it? I mean, the guys running wide open. You just think, if Tua really can just eliminate some of those mistakes, just hit on a few more of those throws, and they stay healthy, you just be like, fucking hell, this thing has a chance to be absolutely unreal.
Did you see the River Craycraft route on his touchdown?
Yeah, it was sensational.
He runs a quick out and then runs completely across the field as a secondary route and manages to catch the touchdown. It's like, I've never seen stuff like that before. So they have a secondary plan almost to every single thing that they wanted to do. Obviously, right there on that play, Tua tries to see if you have the right leverage to throw the quick out for the touchdown. And okay, you don't have that, but I know I have this on the backside if he runs across of his quick out, and it's unbelievable. The play calling and on the fuck it play, like come on, that's just awesome. And one thing that struck me, and it was Tyreek's comments after the game. He said that he went up to Darrell Bevell, and by the way, it's revealed now that it's a triumvirate that's running the offense, but there's one guy calling the plays, which is a breath of fresh air. It wasn't like our triumvirate from last year. But yeah, Darrell Bevell's involved with John Embry and Mike McDaniel. But Tyreek said, look, the next time, and he said he went right to Darrell Bevell with this, and that Darrell Bevell said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I'll pass it on. And he gave it to Mike. He said, the next time they give us that 0 look, don't throw me a smoke, because they had it in their game plan. If they give the 0 look, the Ravens tend to do the same thing that we do. We play 8 yards, man up, okay? Not showing any kind of leverage, and then they'll change it at the snap. So our counter for it was to throw a smoke route, which is just a very short hitch, right? Tyreek went to Darrell Bevell and said, look, the next time they give us that 0 look and they're man up with that 8 yards, I'm just going to run past the guy and just throw it to me. I'm just throw me a fly pattern. And Darrell Bevell goes, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Guess what? On that busted coverage, that's exactly what they did. They had that 0 look, that man up coverage, 8 yards off of him, and Tyreek just ran right past him. And of course, the guy expected safety help. Like, I don't know what you saw, Simon. What did you think of that play where Tyreek that bomb?
The first one or the second one?
The second one where he just runs past the guy and he's expecting safety.
Yeah, Jalen Armour-Davis is clearly expecting help over the top.
I don't know why though.
No, I don't know why either. And it's, rookie 4th rounder. But I just love the way they just like the way they manipulated the coverages in terms of, so if you look at I mentioned it in the OnlyFins group, but if you look at the maybe my favorite play of the entire day was the get down to about the 30 something yard line and then let the clock run. You're like, what the fuck? Why the fuck is the clock running? Run. But they motion Craycraft from left to right and it essentially stacks the field to the field side, to the free side of the defense, and the backside is wide open, and they just hit that Chase Edmonds little draw play to the right side where Craycraft's motion has A, helped Tua see the field, but B, more importantly, has moved another defender, a free defender who would probably been the first line of defense for Chase Edmonds at the second level, out of the way. So it's literally, then you're asking Connor Williams, can you get up on Calais Campbell, turn your hips and wall off? Yes, he can. Then can Rob Hunt get onto Justin Madubuike and move him out of the way, which he did, and then can Greg Little get up on Odafe Owe, which he absolutely did, and drove him like 6 or 7 yards down the field, and Chase just hit that for like 25-30. That was just such a good play. But yeah, they clearly had breakdowns on the back end, but I think that's as much. I mean, I saw this amazing stat. They ran about 6,500 yards, the Ravens defenders, which I think was the highest rate that a defense has run in like 20 years or something.
Yeah, I saw that stat. It was
yes, incredible. I expected them to be tired, but also I just think it was that constant head fuck of motions. And Chris, I don't know what you thought, but I thought there were way less motion, that like there was none of that sort of CFL stuff that we saw with Cedric Wilson in week 1. Was there were we did so many more pre-snap motions and immediate after snap motions in terms of misdirection and different things against the Patriots than we did in week 2. Now maybe that was a system of being down by 3 touchdowns and it was literally just hit the back of your drop, get rid of it, or quick throws or whatever. But there was none of that sort of multiple misdirection. We didn't see any of the Cedric Wilson or Tyreek getting a bit of a run up to get to the line of scrimmage, any of those things. So it just feels like McDaniel's just got so many ideas, so many plans, so many things in his back pocket. It's fucking sexy. The flip side to that is that I was really concerned about the defense. I mean, we got zero pressure. Ogba, Jalen Phillips, we weren't even able to manufacture pressure, which is the most concerning thing, which obviously we have done really well. And I think that manufactured pressure has probably sort of slightly hidden the fact that we're a bit inconsistent in getting consistently to the quarterback. So I wonder how teams will see that in terms of, and then the flip side of that is that, especially when you're putting 7, 8, 9 guys on the line of scrimmage, you're playing cover 0, and then you're having to play off, which is obviously why, Rashad Bateman had that touchdown against Xavier. And the other thing, and another thing, I think it was perfectly apposite, although disgusting at the time, but perfectly apposite that Xavier dropped what would have been the game-tying pick 6. It's a walk-in touchdown, right?
Right.
And in a way, like perhaps none of this story that we had after that would have been written. Do you know what I mean? Because the Ravens got the ball back with 7, 8 minutes to go. They might have driven down the field and scored a game winner, and Tua might never have got the ball back. But the fact that he dropped it allowed us the opportunity to try and rewrite a narrative. And I tweeted literally when we got the ball back with 2:14 to go, this could be a narrative-changing drive for Tua Tagovailoa, and it was. But you just go back those sliding doors moments. Xavier Howard, one of the great cornerbacks the last 7, 8 years, and especially with his hands on the ball. You never see him. Never see him. Cornerbacks notoriously have got Edward Scissorhands, but he is he's receiver-like with his hands, and he flat out dropped the walk-in pick 6. And you just wonder how things would have been different, maybe, if if I would have had 5 touchdowns instead of 6, but nevertheless, that was still a big moment, I thought.
Yeah, the defense spotted. First of all, the special team spotted him a touchdown. So the defense, for all intents and purposes, they gave up 31 points, and they forced the turnover on the goal line. So they probably gave up more than those 31 points. And
did they force it though? Because that was a bad snap. And I think that was, Lamar Jackson just fumbled this. Even it wasn't.
If
even
you
Tyler
watch the play,
Linderbaum.
Zach Sealer does a swim move and is standing face mask to face mask with Lamar Jackson. He was going nowhere. Lamar Jackson was going to be tackled right there.
I don't know that I buy that because whenever there's a fumbled snap that way, there always seems like something happens. It's got players' attention, and the play plays out a little bit different. I think if he doesn't fumble that snap, there's a very good chance that and he was inches away as it was anyway, and it took a review to overturn a touchdown. Basically, that was basically another touchdown drive that was bailed out by a bad snap. I mean, they boat raced us in that first half. It was four possessions or something like that, and they tried to get. They were damn close to 4 touchdowns. It was like 5, and then it was like 5 possessions. It was something like, at one point it was like 6 possessions, and they had 4 real touchdowns. Another 5th one that really, I mean, they got bailed out by the bad snap, and then plus the 103-yard kick return. I mean, it was a total defensive and special teams meltdown. I'm not gonna sit here and say, try to, big picture defense actually did okay. They got no, they were absolutely getting destroyed. Okay. And in a very embarrassing way. Several of the players on the defense were having the worst games that we've seen them have in a long time. And I think that overall it needs to be said that the Baltimore Ravens spent quite a bit of time trying to come up with multiple answers to what the Dolphins showed last year. And it just seemed like the Dolphins walked into it, the Dolphins were okay, well, let's see. And I'm guilty of saying this beforehand too. So I'm like, well, first you got to see if the answers that they have are actually going to work. Because it didn't work last time, and so you got to see if, guess what, they did. And they had great answers for the cover zero looks, great answers for the blitz looks that Miami had. And it just felt like Miami might have been better served on defense, trying to decipher really what those answers were in a sandbox, in a way that wasn't going to cost them these big plays. And whether that means faking a lot of the blitzes or something like, and then backing out of it just to see if Baltimore would tip their hand as to their answers a little bit, so that then they could, because once you tip their hand as to their answers, and you saw this in the second half. Once Baltimore tipped their hand as to what they were doing against the zero blitz and those looks, like Miami adjusted, and they were still running the zero blitz look, the cover zero looks and the blitzes, but they were having a guy back out of it and bolt his way out to the sideline, exactly where Baltimore was going to want to flip that ball out for a screen or one of the answers that they were going to have against that look. I mean, Miami started to adjust in the second half and say, okay, this is what you're doing against that attacking look, and so Miami did better, I guess. It's just, you wonder if they could have come up with that, or they could have gotten Baltimore to tip their hands in a way that didn't cost them however many billions of points or whatever before they finally started to figure it out. Because by all means, they should have lost the game. By all means, they absolutely should have lost the game because of a total defensive meltdown and failure. And so I think that I think that going forward, hopefully there's some awareness and adjustments to that. But I'm not gonna bail the defense out here. That was abysmal. That was one of the worst performances on defense for most of the game. That was one of the worst performances on defense that we can remember since going back to Brian Flores' first year, when the team was just, the first month of the season, when it was like there was no defense at all.
Pittsburgh,
yeah. Oh man, the Pittsburgh, the tank play,
the Pittsburgh Blitz. Yeah.
Yeah. The Pittsburgh Blitz. I'm not bailing them out on that one.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go to break right now. We're gonna hear some words from Liquid Death, but on the way back, when we come back from these words on Liquid Death, we will talk about the stars of this game, and of course, we're gonna have to give our flowers to Tua and the newest version of the Marx Brothers. This show is brought to you by Liquid Death. You've seen those good-looking cans at the grocery store that look like beer called Liquid Death? It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, available in still, sparkling, and these flavors: severed lime, mango chainsaw, and my favorite, Bury It Alive. Actually, I'm drinking one of those right now. The fine people at Liquid Death were going to send me this product, but I just jumped the gun, bought a 12-pack of Bury It Alive. I wanted to try it. It has 3 grams of agave nectar. Let me tell you, it's delicious. It's no longer a secret. This is the most underrated thirst quencher in the market. Liquid Death murders your thirst, and the infinitely recyclable cans are environmentally friendly. Liquid Death also donates 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. Go get Liquid Death at your local Publix, the Fresh Market, or Whole Foods Market, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/3. That's our dedicated website. That's liquiddeath.com/3, spelled out THREE. Follow Liquid Death on social media on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Use the hashtag murder your thirst and hashtag death to plastic. Liquid Death. All right, and we're back. All right, Simon, I want to touch a little bit on the defense before we move on to, because we keep burying the lead here. The lead here is those 2 wide receivers and the quarterback. But this team overcame a kickoff return for a touchdown, 2 turnovers by their quarterback, and one of the best players in the NFL and one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at the height of his powers, having pretty much a career game. It's his best game statistically. If you believe in game score, it's his best game of his career. Although he's had some other more prolific games as far as yards. But, the guy threw for 300 yards, had a perfect passer rating, 3 touchdowns, and ran for 119. So that's pretty good. They overcame all those things, and they win by 4 points. It's not enough to say that what did they do to do that? Obviously, they scored 1 billion points, and they threw for 300 yards in the second half and 4 touchdowns. But the defense, and Chris kind of touched on this, they made some key stops in the second half. And I don't know, do you blame Jim? Because I've been listening to the Ravens intelligentsia and their beat all day, and they're blaming John Harbaugh for going for it at the 40-yard line in the second half.
I was surprised they went for it. I thought Greg Roman got a little bit conservative, given how off the corners were playing. I thought there was room to maneuver. But look, when the Dolphins needed it, they came up massively on those 4th down stops. I thought Trey Flowers, who barely played, had a massive stop on that 4th down. Orlando Roberts was big on that 4th down. And I do feel like they got a little bit conservative. I thought that Lamar was fantastic. I thought he missed just 1 or 2 throws. He missed that throw to Isaiah Likely, although it should have come back with Jalen Phillips, with a whole massive sort of takedown on Jalen Phillips, which they bizarrely picked up the flag for. But yeah, I just thought they looked significantly better in the second half defensively. Only gave up 1 touchdown, and it goes back to what I said at the very top of the show, that I just thought that the adjustments that were made were superb. I thought Kristen Wilkins had a really good game.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, I thought overall you couldn't pick too many stars. And obviously the very interesting bit was the Kader Kohu coming in and playing significant time in the second half over Nick Needham, who went to the bench. And McDaniel said afterwards said today that actually that was, I thought he sort of fudged the answer a little bit, where he said about, sometimes scenarios come up where you just want to, you feel like some matchups are better than others, and he had the look in his eye, and that all sounds really cute, but realistically, I didn't think it was the case at the time, but realistically, it feels like Nick Needham was benched. I know he got beaten for the fourth touchdown just before half time, but you could pick a guy on defense, and he'd have had a bad game.
Yeah, I think Kader Kohu, I think they wanted some physicality out there. I think he was their Justin Coleman for this game. Justin Coleman is, I believe he's back in Seattle. But remember last year,
Justin Bethel was on the field ahead of Nick Needham as well. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we had Kohu, Bethel, and X with Rowe, Jones, and Holland at times. So it was very interesting to see. But because that's some fall for Nick Needham, because I think he's a really good player. I do not think he's necessary, and actually it's a really interesting one for moving on next season. Because obviously he becomes a free agent. He's a very good slot corner, and it feels like he's just struggled a little bit outside on the perimeter. And for a big guy as well, you expect him to be better outside, but actually he's just really good inside. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It maybe they just let him walk, and you think if Kohu can just develop, keep Byron Jones around, Kohu as the third corner can play the slot, and you're saving yourself whatever you're going to need to pay on Nick Needham, who, let's make no bones about it. We paid nothing for him to get him. He was an undrafted free agent, and he's been phenomenal, but those are the breaks sometimes.
Yeah, if we believe what they tried to do this offseason, you could see a scenario where they might just pass on some of that money from Byron Jones onto maybe another corner and maybe do some wholesale changes on the back end.
I like Byron Jones. I think he gets.
I love him too. I think he's a great player.
But, people say, "Oh, he gets beat." He might get beat like once or twice, but I think he gets a really hard time. I think he is significantly better than fans. And I don't mean this to be critical, but it is going to sound it. But like ball watchers think that, he got beat once or twice and therefore he's terrible. I mean, that's not the case. He might get beaten once or twice, in part because the best corner or one of the best corners in the NFL is on the other side, right? So you're always going to see more action than necessarily you would otherwise. But also because you look at the other sort of 40-odd plays, a quarterback drops back to throw 40, 45 times. Byron Jones is in great position so many times. If people talk about the one or two catches, what about the other 46 plays where, he was in great position? So I think I don't think fans really understand scheme, and, it's such a binary game for some people. And, I just think he's a really good player.
Yeah, their little gambit this offseason of possibly attempting to replace him with JC Jackson would have been a mistake. No?
I don't know. I mean, look, you wanna get in amazing players into your team. It's all about, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
Byron is going to be 30 in 7 days' time. So a week today, Byron will be 30. JC Jackson's just 26. So it's also a guy that's 4 years younger. Do you know what I mean? And, with the best one in the world, as much as I've just pumped his tires, Byron Jones isn't a big interception guy, whereas JC is obviously, him and X have dominated, in terms of getting their hands on balls over the last, what does he have? He has.
Oh, JC Jackson had 11 in a season, right? Or 10. Yeah. No, he had 10. He's had
25 picks over the last 4 years. I mean, he's had nine picks in 2020, 8 picks in 2021. So these are guys who get their hands on the ball, and it felt to me like it was very much it was like a mandate as much as the speed mandate was on offense. It was a mandate of let's get our hands on footballs in a game that is ever evolving more and more towards throwing the ball, putting the ball in the air. You get the two guys that come down with 10 picks each. I mean, that's a hell of a weapon to have on your defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get to the fun stuff. I go to Chris first. Chris, your frame of reference, you said in the break was the 90s. So you saw Irving Fryer, Mark Ingram. I don't know how much you know about the Marx brothers, but this is what they look like. This is what Mark Duper and Mark Clayton looked like. And if you substituted our 6'1", 220-pound Samoan with an Italian that was 6'4", 225 pounds, that's what 1984. That's what the 1984 Dolphins look like. By the way, that team was 14-2 and managed to run into the 15-1 49ers. So, that was as unlucky a team as you can get, but it was a spectacular offense.
Well, my frame of reference is more, and I mentioned this before the season started, in terms of our expectations, my frame of reference is more the Rams and what the Rams were doing with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt and Hakeem, because it was all about the speed that they were putting on the field, including Marshall Faulk, and the speed that he brought to the table, and the speed that the spacing that I should say that speed creates is just sometimes it's mind-boggling because of how incredibly different it is from a year ago. A year ago we couldn't buy space anywhere. Everything was tight. Everything was a phone booth. Every throw had to be into the tightest window. It was really incredible to see the difference out there. I mean, we're watching the all 22s of this play, or this game against Baltimore, and seeing the absolute amount of space that is out there is just incredible compared to a year ago. And that starts with the speed of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but it doesn't really end there, because it's the speed of Raheem Mostert too. It's the speed of Chase Edmonds. It's the speed of Mike Gesicki as a tight end. And I think that this is hopefully, if the Dolphins take something out of this and they're able to keep the ball rolling on offense, I think, if we're talking about the Tua and the decision making, and the turnovers and stuff like that, to some extent you live and die by the sword. Some of the stuff that got him that second half was also some of the stuff that got him those interceptions in the first half. I mean, he is a guy that likes to use this. I have distinct memories of Tom Brady saying this, I think like over a decade ago, where he said something along the lines of, if you're any good, if you're a good quarterback, then you pretty much know 85% of the time where the ball is going to end up before the play starts. And he said that back then. That was a long time ago, but that's the kind of quarterback that I think Tua is. And so he kind of has, based on the look and based on the play and everything, he has an idea in his mind what's going to end up happening with the ball. And then he's going to go through some, his own brand of unique choreography in order to get it there, whether it be his eyes looking people off, whether it be his head, his shoulders, a pump fake, shortened up feet, or taking a wider stance. He fakes with his feet. He does all kinds of things to get the guy that he wants before the play starts, based on the play call and the defensive look. And that got him in trouble in the first half. The first interception was, it was a little bit of a forced throw, but also Tyreek Hill should have come back for the ball. And, there were a couple of things going on there, but the second interception was just atrocious. And it was him looking one direction and then just flipping over without even locating anybody, just throwing the ball out there. And he guessed wrong. He thought, it looked to me like he thought that they were going to end up that the safety was going to roll over into a single high. And instead they were in deep halves, and the guy just, came over and easily made the interception. But I think that you saw, when you really look at the tape in the second half, and you still saw him doing things that were similar in the second half. It's just, it worked really well a lot. I think that the difference this year, though, is just looking at the spacing that you see with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek. I mean, when Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Mike Gesicki have been on the field together, I did this on the OnlyFans, and I think I posted it there. They've had those guys on the field for 37 pass plays, and they've thrown the ball for 333 yards and 4 touchdowns on those plays. Okay. And the one interception was the one where Tua was disgusted with himself because he just looked a guy off and then just whipped back and threw it without even looking at the defense. And he guessed wrong on the coverage and stuff. But if you look at that play, like Tyreek Hill was wide open on the backside on a curl. So I mean, the spacing that is created with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki on the field together as a trio is formidable. That's why I said at like a halftime, we're losing 28-7, and I wasn't confident that we're going to win or anything. I thought we were going to lose the game, but I was like, I said it on Twitter, I said it on OnlyFans. I'm like, I'm really interested in seeing what happens in the second half, because I know they're going to go to 11 personnel now, with Mike Gesicki on the field more often. And I happen to know, because I did all the breakdowns from the first week against New England, that was really damn effective, when they were doing that. I know that the stuff with the 21 personnel and Alec Ingold, and it gets people jazzed up and stuff like that. But their 11 personnel, their 3 wide receiver personnel with Mike Gesicki as the lone tight end, has been very effective in the passing game. And I was wondering, okay, if they're going to do that all second half, and they're going to pass. I'm really damn curious what's going to happen. And what ended up happening is, what did happen. He throws 5 touchdowns in the second half. And I think that if they explore that more, and the space that creates with all that speed at every single position, above board speed at every single position, running back, tight end, wide receiver, it's going to be fascinating. And I hope they take that lesson going forward. I hope they do. It's not that I hope they give up 21 personnel, because that's not true. Or that's probably not a wise thing to do, but they really need to embrace some of running those guys up and down the field, the Baltimore secondary, 6,000 yards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's a big part of what ended up happening in the fourth quarter of that game with 4 touchdowns. Okay. So do that. And that was on 69 total plays. It wasn't like, I've seen games where they have like 89 plays, and this was only 69 plays, and they were running these guys up and down like that. So, I explore that further, explore something they did in the first game that they didn't do. I noticed they didn't do as much of in the second game. And this was interesting, is, this is a staple of this offense, the play action boots, basically, where Tua's, boot action, and then off to the sidelines. Well, the Patriots had Matt Judon on the backside of that, just up in his face every time. And you can't simulate Matt Judon being up in your face at true game speed in practices. Right. And so this is a brand new offense for Tua. This is a state offense. So he's trying to get used to being the playmaker on the boot actions like that. And it did not work well against New England. You can count the number of plays where, and Tua just wasn't handling that well. It's still very new to him. They didn't do as much of that this time. And when they did, they sealed off a half of the field, and it didn't look necessarily that great at times still. So I think that they went to it less. It's like Simon said, they started to go to stuff that Tua does well, and but also add in their creativity with it. And that's where I get really fascinated about how they can go on further and expand further on this offensively with Mike McDaniel and the staff, is to try and create the more space, get that speed out there. Don't play in the phone book. Don't seal off half of the field as much if that's not going to be working as well. And if Tua is still a little iffy on those boots, because he's got a guy in his face and he's trying to manage that. He's got a guy behind him. He's trying to sneak the ball behind him in the shallow, or he's going to try to hit the guy on the more intermediate level on the over. If he's not managing that well, like the typical Shanahan quarterbacks do, when they get old hat at this. And if he's not quite there yet, then it's no sin. It's fine. You can explore what the speed and the spacing can do for him anyway. And he's still he's going to be productive. And I think that we saw it, and we've always known that he can be good in the fourth quarter. I've been posting or tweeting about that, posting about that, and his unusual fourth quarter proficiency for a long time. And we saw it. So going forward, goddamn, you use that spacing, use that speed, get that spacing, because it was incredible to look at the all 22 and see that much space and that much the guys that open. And I want to see more of it. I don't want to go back to the phone booth. So I just thought.
one of my favorite plays, and I'll ask you this, Simon. One of my favorite plays of that game was they come out in 21 personnel on their own goal line. Okay, the shadow of their own goal line. They invert the formation and they go empty, and they put the fullback out on the perimeter. They put a tight end on the other side that have Waddle and Tyreek Hill basically both in the slot on either side of the formation. And we spoke about this on OnlyFans when we were talking about, doing our film study of what the Ravens like to play. They like to play a lot of quarters and a lot of match zone. And we talked about this. If they tried to play match zone against this Dolphin team, they were going to get smoked. Now, we had no idea that getting smoked was going to be this, okay? 300 yards in the second half and 5 touchdowns, or 200 yards in the fourth quarter and 4 touchdown passes. But that play, sure enough, they get the look that they wanted. They get match zone. It's basically a linebacker with Jalen Waddle and a safety with Tyreek Hill for the first 10 yards of the route. So what do? They sit Waddle right in behind him. Tua looks off the safety, delivers the pass over the middle, and now there's space in front of Waddle, and he takes it a total of 60 yards from the goal line. That was my favorite play of the day. And I don't know what you saw in that play, Simon, but you can elaborate on that if you want, but I'll give you these 2 numbers, okay? In 1984, Mark Clayton, 73 receptions, 1,389 yards, 18 touchdowns. Duper, 71 receptions, 1,306 yards, 8 touchdowns. Combined, that's 26 touchdowns. That's 2,695 yards. So basically 2,700 yards. Do they got a shot at it, Simon?
Do they have a shot at it? Yeah, of course they have a shot at it. Yeah, of course they have a shot at it. They lead the NFL, the pair of them in receiving yards. So of course they have a shot.
17-game season too.
Yeah, in a 17-game season, exactly. So yeah, they have a massive shot at it. But it's like I said at the very top, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. Let's not put ourselves in. We had people in the OnlyFans chat today talking about, this is the Super Bowl run. It's like, lads, it's week 2. A lot can change. So I don't have anything to play. It was an amazing route. Waddle was ran an amazing route, and he just absolutely sent Patrick Queen to sleep. But yeah, of course they can make it. Of course they can.
They're on pace for double that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Arizona's beautiful in February, by the way. Good golf. I would suggest get your hotel and your flights early, because it become very, very expensive as the Super Bowl draws closer. So just a tip. We got to talk about the quarterback.
It's talk like that just like,
yeah, puckers you right up, doesn't it?
Let them beat the fucking Bills on Sunday, so you can see what I'm going to be talking about the following day.
I mean, let them get into the play. But even if they win next week, like it means...
Oh no, if they win the next week, I don't give a fuck who they play the rest of the year. They're going to the playoffs. Like, there's no way you could win those first 3 games and not make the playoffs.
I mean, of course there is.
You need a cataclysmic.
But these things happen. This is the NFL. People get hurt. Stuff happens.
Tua gets hurt. Tyreek gets hurt.
Tyreek and Waddle get hurt, and Tua's out, and we go with Bridgewater and River Craycraft and Freddie Swain, and 3-0. But it's true. This happens all the time. Trey Lance broke his ankle yesterday. It's like, all of these things happen, mate. It's like people going, we're on the Super Bowl run. It's like, lads, it's week 3. There's so Armstead could get hurt. Like,
yeah, that's the only bad news from yesterday, is that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to fuck up our draft pick now.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm an NFC GM or coach, I am sitting there thinking, and I think deep down, and they would never admit it, but deep down, I think the 49ers front office guys are thinking we have a better chance now of, like, you can't, and I was talking about this on another podcast earlier on, you can't, like, I think Trey Lance will be fine, but this is a guy, you can't go toe to toe with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball mano-a-mano with Trey Lance at the moment. 219 throws in college. Trevor Lawrence threw 1,300 throws in college at Clemson. Josh Allen had 1,300 throws. Patrick Mahomes had 1,600 throws. Trey Lance had 219 throws in 4 years at a mid-major in a run-first offense. But, I think Jimmy gives the 49ers a better chance to win the Super Bowl to get to the Super Bowl in a not an overwhelmingly good conference. Do you know what I mean? I think Trey Lance will be fine. At the moment,
Could you fantasize for a moment, though? On if they had traded Jimmy Garoppolo? And Trey Lance now is broken ankle, going to miss the season, and we have their draft pick.
Brock Purdy's the number 3, isn't he?
Yeah, so Brock Purdy's leading the 49ers for an entire year, and we have their draft pick. Could you have just fantasized for that for a moment?
Sensational. And then quarterbacks go 1, 2, and 3, and we take Will Anderson.
Yes.
God.
Yes. Yeah. Think about that. It's either Will Anderson or a haul of
or Jalen Carter. The kid out of Georgia, unbelievable top 5 pick. It would depending on Armstead, Peter Skoronsky of Northwest. I mean, there's a lot of talent.
I mean, they'd probably sell the pick. We know that, but I mean,
they just sell it for speed, right? I mean,
yeah.
Who's the fastest? I mean, we're not going to become Al Davis, but there is clearly a system within this system, if that makes sense, where speed works. It just works.
Yeah. By the way,
Bijan Robinson. I mean, you could mix in a big, old, physical but fast 3-down chain mover like that to mix him in with Mostert and Chase Edmonds, and by God, that's a hell of a proposition. Oh, and we still got Hill, Waddle, Gesicki, Wilson, Craycraft, Sherfield.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent group. So, let's give the quarterback a little love here. I thought he's improving. He's not only is he developing, in my opinion, but I wouldn't say that this was a sentinel moment, but it's as close to a sentinel moment as you can have. I think those sentinel moments for a quarterback comes when they get to the playoffs and they make a play in the playoffs that wins a playoff game, or they play just spectacular lights out in the playoffs, and then it just becomes old hat after that. I'll ask you, Chris. He's improving, and it's noticeable. I'm going to give the credit to Mike McDaniel. I think he not only resurrecting his career. I think he's going to make Tua Tagovailoa's career. I think he's in for a big year. Your thoughts?
It's hard to say, how much is improvement versus how much is sort of the same tendencies that I talked about already. That he's still. I hate to call him a first read guy because everybody's going to take that and run with it in the negative. But I mean, he's he has a sort of tendency in a way that he does things. And it's hard to tell, how much of that just worked out. I think there was a very humbling stat that somebody brought up about how the Ravens secondary over the last year has led up, something like 4 or maybe even 5 games of 400 passing yards. And and every other team in the league over the same time period are tied. Anybody else who has done that,
it's an arbitrary number.
But still, like anybody else who has done that has done it only once.
But it's an arbitrary number. But the stat is still.
I mean, I think it is very humbling to see that. It is. You have to keep that in mind. So how much of this was Tua's tendencies that we've already known about, which is good and bad, positive, negative, and how much is something a little bit new. I think that the confidence level might have changed. I think that his back against the wall might have changed things about the decisiveness and sort of keeping him from playing really tight football. And I think that's hopefully that's the area of growth. But the fourth quarter stuff. I mean, he was one of the most proficient fourth quarter passes of the last 30 years already. And then we just saw, and of course, he just blasted right through that with a ridiculous fourth quarter. But that is tough to say. That is tough to say. And I'm not trying to big him up too much and say, oh, well, he was the same guy in this game that he always was, because that's not true, and we know that. But drawing the line somewhere and saying, this is what he would have done, or this is what he was not, and then this is what he was. That is a little more hazy than people think. So hopefully the confidence factor, as Mike McDaniel himself keeps bringing up, the confidence factor itself is the thing that's changing going forward.
All right, and to close here, I don't know, Simon, you want to say something about the quarterback, because I think he deserves his time on this show.
He absolutely deserves his time. He was phenomenal in the second half. I thought he was exactly the same guy that we've seen in the first half, if I'm honest. I don't think there's any way that you can look at that and say he wasn't. You know, the 2 interceptions, Chris talked about how bad the second one was. I know Tyreek slipped a little bit coming out the first one, but you're thrown into triple coverage with Marcus Williams and Marlon Humphrey. You know, the throw was a little bit late. You know, but he felt like the right guy. I'm going to be completely honest with you listeners out there. You know how I have supported the guy, but I've been consistently worried about what's happened. I've loved him at in college. I absolutely advocated 100% for him to be the Dolphins quarterback, to the detriment of my own common sense when I look at how some of the ridiculous things I said about Justin Herbert, and I'm glad that Herbert's proved me wrong. But I've been worried about his inconsistency over the 2 and a bit years, and I understand the offensive line, and I understand the lack of salient targets, etc. But we still retain a WhatsApp group that we use very occasionally just for, saying what time we're going to be doing this podcast and those sorts of bits. And I put it in the group, and I said, look, I'm not going to put this in the OnlyFins. I said, but I feel like I'm just out on this kid. I just can't see the improvement that we need. You know, we're down 28-7. I was just like, I just can't see it. I just don't see where it's going to change. You know, this offense that we talked about, it's just not going to happen. And then he turns in the second half that he did, and he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. You know, throw after throw. You know, just taking it. And this is what I've wanted to see. Put the fucking team on his shoulders, and that's what he did. He put the team on his shoulders. Yep, Hill was 4 or 5 yards open. He's still got to get it down the field. You know, Jalen Waddle wasn't 4 or 5 yards open for the game winner. He was 4 or 5 inches open. You know, and he made that play, stepped up. Yeah, it was a great throw. Same with Craycraft, just the way he span out of it. You know, hit the guy. It reminded me of the touchdown that he threw, I think, against Missouri when he was at Alabama, just spinning in the backfield and then hitting a guy in the bottom right hand corner of the end zone. He was phenomenal. But he's got to back it up now next week. I said it earlier in the show. It can't be fool's gold. It can't be this kind of, you know, oh, well, he was great for 2 quarters. I hope what it does is that it feels like he has this internal struggle. Like Mike McDaniel said today that he threw an interception, which I assume was the second interception. But he said he threw an interception on Sunday. He said, and he was absolutely disgusted with what he did. He thought it was a disgusting throw. I hope that what he sees and the reaction, I know he doesn't pay any attention to the reaction, but I just hope he thinks, you know what, I can fucking do this. This offense is built for him. It's so built for him, for all of his little bits and the things that he does so perfectly well, the accuracy, the quick throws, all of those sorts of things. You know, and I've been down on him when he was down, and down on him when he was inconsistent, and down on him when he was average. And I do worry in a league of mutants like the guy that I'm literally looking at right now, Josh Allen, in a league of mutants like Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and all these guys coming up, that, you know, we'd missed out again. For 2 quarters yesterday made me believe, made me dream, made me think it was possible. And if he can take that next step, which it felt like he'd done in that second half yesterday, then all bets could be off with this team. But it's a big if. He's got to do it week in, week out, because that's what these mutants are doing, and that's what he's got to live with. You know, can he go on the road to Buffalo? Can he go on the road to Kansas City in the playoffs? Can he go on the road to Cincinnati? Can he go on the road to the Chargers and take on these big guys and beat them? He did it yesterday with the former MVP. He went blow for blow, toe for toe with Lamar Jackson, and Lamar was phenomenal. He had 300 plus yards passing, 119 yards rushing. He was, you know, it was a game of the week, AFC game of the week type performance, and Tua just outplayed him, flat out outplayed him. And that's phenomenal to think that if he has that in his locker every week, and he has the confidence to do it every week, he's given the confidence to do it every week, then, you know, look out. But it's got to be a week to week thing.
All right, on the way out here, we're gonna do our 3 stars of the game, and it's too easy to say Tua and the 2 wide receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I'm gonna ask that we go off the board and we use 3 guys, not name those. So I'll go first. I thought Kristen Wilkins was great in this game. He was running up and down the field everywhere. He made 1 tackle 30 yards laterally on Lamar Jackson. That's a 315-pound defensive tackle running across the field about 35 yards to make a tackle on Lamar Jackson for what was at the time a 6-yard gain. I thought Kristen Wilkins played very, very, very well. Another guy I'm gonna give some flowers to Greg Little. This guy was pressed into action. I don't think he's giving back that job. I think he's the right tackle. And when Austin Jackson comes back, I think Greg Little's gonna have to stumble for Austin Jackson to get a shot at being the right tackle. And I think Austin Jackson's gonna be the swing tackle for the rest of the year. So that's my second star. My third star, he probably doesn't deserve it, but I'm glad to see that he didn't put his head down and made a spectacular play. That play looked better than what it was. Mike Gesicki's touchdown. I'm going to give my third star to Mike Gesicki. Showed up, 43 yards, 4 catches. Great catch at the back of the end zone. He went up at least 10.5 feet to grab that one. Great play. Glad to see that he hasn't put his head down and he's not moping. He's contributing to the team. Simon, your 3 stars.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Tua's performance was phenomenal and deservedly so. I mean, just a couple of things I just wanted to point out that actually, like, you talk about what we're looking for improvement, right? Third downs. He's the best third down quarterback in the NFL at the moment. He was the 42nd rated third down passer last year. He's now the number 1 third down passer. Obviously, that can change. It's only week 2. But that is, that's much improved. And also he's much improved in the intermediate area of the field, that 11 to sort of 25 yards. He's much, much better. I think he's the 4th rated passer in the league in that area. So to me, that's where that improvement comes from. The tackles, you mentioned Greg Little. I thought Greg Little was great. I thought Teron Armstead's a fucking animal. He's so good. And I just think that those 2 tackles, I don't think Austin Jackson gets his job back. And third, I just want to mention Matt Applebaum, because I think the offensive line, whilst not fixed, is significantly better than it was. And I'm about to tweet out a play that I just absolutely loved, where I just thought the offensive line was just in complete unison. There are still some issues, absolutely, but there were no high snaps. Eichenberg played better, lovely, great out in space on the first Waddle touchdown. Yeah, he whiffed on a couple of blocks. So you see the Calais Campbell block for the second deep touchdown to Tyreek wasn't amazing, but I thought the offensive line were excellent. So big credit to Matt Applebaum and the job that he's done, because by God, it's a hell of a change from this time last year.
Chris, your 3 stars.
I thought about this, and I can't rightly, if I had to pick somebody on defense from this game, it would probably be Zach Sealer, because I feel like he's the only guy that really played consistently, but I'm not sure that I really want to give it to anybody on the defensive side, because as I said before, I'm not looking to make excuses for them. I mean, we've had games where all we could do is just talk trash about the offense and every, the fact that they're not putting up. Well, in this game, the defense was not putting up. I think on offense, I think the 3 of them are going to be on offense. And honestly, Raheem Mostert was one of them in the game to me. He's been, I think he was more of like the RB1 in the game. And I think that he's done a really good job as they're kind of splicing him into the offense, and he I thought that he was making a difference in the plays that he was in there. And then the also Teron Armstead, and Simon already mentioned, I mean, just the game that he played, and it was a lot better actually than his first game of the year that he played against the New England Patriots. I thought that he could have done better in that New England Patriots game, but he was a big part of, I thought, this game and this result and what the offense did. And then the third guy, I see Mike Gesicki. I'm glad he made a huge play, but I think that he can also do more. I think your boy Alec Ingold played a genuine game here. I mean, he did whiff on a block when we saw it, but overall they asked him to play a lot in this game and to make an impact. And even though I think 11 personnel was their most potent, they were still, I mean, they gained 185 yards through the air on and 21 personnel and in this game. And I think he was a big part of that. And they also succeeded well on the ground. And so the way that they use him, all the different places that they use him and different manners that they use him, you got to give it to him at some point. And if this game's not it, I don't know which game it would be. So, so I think that Ingold, Mostert, and Teron Armstead. I mean, if I can't name Tua and Tyreek and Jalen, because those are the three obvious.
Yeah, those are the three obvious stars of this game. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when the two wide receivers do something that's never happened in the history of the sport. Never happened.
The mutants just run us for a first down on 3rd and 9. It's just ridiculous. He's on.
Well, we can hope, can't we? That, I mean, because how many times we had the conversation, even arguments about Josh Allen in his first 2 years?
Oh, mate, you were 100% right about Allen, mate, and I was 100% wrong. But I think he's the ultimate NFL outlier, right? I just don't think a guy at 50% completion percentage. I just don't think it happens. He's a complete outlier.
But third year was when he did it. Third year was when he put it all together.
And people now completely forget the first 2 years of Josh Allen. Do you know what I mean? And he's obviously a very different quarterback to Tua, but people completely forget about what happened the first 2 years. Like, it's interesting. Like, you look around at someone like Justin Fields, right? Because Justin Fields is going through a very similar conversation to Tua in terms of, is he good enough? Is he good enough to do it? But then you look at the fucking weapons. The weapons at receiver in Buffalo and Chicago are unbelievably bad. Like, unbelievably bad. Cole Kmet was awful yesterday as a tight end. Like, the receivers, I know we like Byron Pringle, but it's not good. So it's just such an interesting conversation. And I think, I can't remember who said it today. It was Daniel Jeremiah said it today about just how we just give up so quickly. The modern game just makes us give up so much on young quarterbacks. So it will be fascinating to see.
They gave him Stephon Diggs, and so and surrounded him, and all of a sudden,
all of a sudden it just clicks and it happens. By the way, tickets
Ed
for
Oliver and Gabe Davis are both injured and out tonight, both with ankle injuries. So, hopefully might bode well for the next week.
Tickets for Buffalo, Miami going in the secondary market for double face value as of right now. So expect them to be about triple by Thursday, and then it'll probably ease toward kickoff. But it's a very, very hot ticket right now. The next time we talk to you guys will be on Thursday, and we will preview a big game, as big a week 3 game as you could possibly have. Dolphins, Bills. We'll talk about it on Thursday. But till then.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.
Join Planet Fitness today and get more epic energy with tons of equipment. Join for $1 down and just $10 a month.
Deal extended through September 21st. Sign up today.
It's glow time. See Club for details.
Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. All you have to do is pick the over-under on 2 or more players, then you're set in 60 seconds or less. You can win up to 10 times your money. Didn't get your picks in before the game started? No problem. You can get in the game for the second half. Sign up today using promo code FOOTBALL and get your first deposit instantly matched up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com or download the mobile app and enter code FOOTBALL to get your deposit match. Some restrictions do apply. See the website for details.